Today, I'm joined by Keren Eldad. Keren is a thought leader who specializes in taking high achievers out of the futility of constant pursuit and into greater levels of success and fulfillment. Her coaching clients include Olympic athletes, politicians, Hollywood stars, supermodels, special forces operatives, and serial entrepreneurs, as well as renowned global organizations such as Estee Lauder, JP Morgan, and Nike. She is the founder of The Club, a community of leaders, entrepreneurs, and coaches who encourage and support each other to reach their fullest potential and make their greatest contribution. Her latest book, Gilded, Breaking Free from the Cage of Ambition, Perfectionism, and the Relentless Pursuit of More, is a wake-up call for high achievers trapped by their own success. And I'm excited to have her on the show to learn from her experience. So, Keren, welcome to the team.
Thanks, John. So nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. I'm excited to talk about this issue because I think I have been around a lot of high achievers and I think I know the trap of which you speak. So I'm kind of curious to talk about that. And we have a lot of leaders listening in that might find themselves caught in that trap as well. So let's start off and talk a little bit about that. So you work with some of the world's highest achievers, right? You're talking about the pinnacle of success in sports and military and what have you. What patterns do you see in the way elite performers experience burnout, and why are so many of them struggling despite their seeming, huge success?
The thing I've observed over the last 10 years of doing this, John, is that success and happiness seem to be correlated in the inverse. The more successful you are, the less happy you are. And before people listening in protest about this, just sit down, lean in for a little second, especially if this is triggering you, because the truth is, most people don't talk to you about this. They talk to you about becoming more and more successful. I'm here to say, I want you to survive your success. I don't want you to become more successful for the sake of success itself. I want you to become more successful so that you can become more fulfilled and more of who you truly are. The way to do that is to understand that the reason they've missed the mark, most successful people miss the mark, is their targets are off.
Hmm.
And as a former military person, I can tell you, it doesn't matter how much you fire if your target is off. You're not going to miss to hit a target. And so, what we really want is to get their self awareness on straight, to become much more aware of where they are and where they want to go, and to get
Hmm.
much clearer on what that there is, what their targets are, so that they can much more efficiently hit the target of happiness. This, in turn will actually make you a much more pleasant person to be around, which will make you a much better leader. And that's where you and I are simpatico because I too want to build a world where there are nicer, better leaders.
Yeah, yeah. But how do we deal with this? Because I think the way you become successful is sort of relentless pursuit towards something that you're deeply passionate about, right? To become an Olympic athlete, right? You're all in, right? You are relentless to achieve that objective. And then someone comes along and say, well, maybe you're aiming at the wrong target, right?
Yeah, so I really like that you're saying that because now we can have a little bit of an exchange. You're assuming that an Olympic champion is truly pursuing a noble and worthy goal that is aligned with their soul. But is it? Are
Mm,
they truly pursuing tennis the Roger Federer way, where it's about the love of the game? Or are they pursuing excellence in golf the Tiger Woods way? I have to win at all costs. Is it
mm.
about the winning, the aggrandizement, the achievement, the accolades, or is it about the sport? That's where the difference starts to form. And the cracks will begin to show in your life as you relentlessly pursue things. Because if you decide to choose the Tiger Woods option, I'd like to remind people while there has been a resurrection, that didn't end well.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I think, like you said, what are the reasons you're doing what you're doing? What is your passion? What do you truly, uh, you know, what do you feel like you're put on earth to do? And maybe somehow the question is why are you just focusing on one particular objective versus an overall objective in your life? I think that because I think a lot of successful people are have very destructive lives.
Yeah, they do. And
So,
that's because their targets are off.
yeah,
It's not that inherently there's anything wrong with becoming an enormously successful athlete. It's just, is it about the sport or is it
yeah.
about the glory? If it's about the glory, let me tell you right now, it's going to eat you alive.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. It makes a lot of sense, and it makes a lot of like a lot of people look at successful people and wonder why their lives are such a mess. And you sort of helped sort of peel back the curtain a little bit on that.
That's pretty much it. I've been thinking about this a lot. I am more partial to pop superstars than I am to athletes. Not in coaching, I'm agnostic. And I just read recently, John, that Justin Bieber has sold his entire catalog of music for $200 million, which, by the way, is a very large sum, but not for someone like Justin Bieber, certainly not for his body of work. He is the same age as Taylor Swift. She spent almost that much to buy her own music. They have completely different motivations. Allegedly, and his representatives denied this, he did this because he ran out of money. That means that he's been pursuing very wrong gods, if you will, very
Yeah,
false idols, and he's blown up. She has done the exact opposite. She, in the last year alone, has made 2 billion with a B dollars with her own music. And so the why is very, very critical, not only in your personal uh, inner emotional state, but to your outcomes.
yeah, that makes so much sense. It really does. Now, your book Gilded, you talk about the gilded cage of ambition. So, what does that cage look like in real life, and how does someone know if they might be trapped in that gilded cage?
That's the first step is to recognize that you are in a gilded cage. So I'm very happy to describe it for you. Let's talk about entrepreneurs or founders, for example. We
Yeah,
all start these endeavors. We're hoping to build for ourselves a freer lives, right? We don't want to work for the man anymore. We want to manage our own time. We want to make our own money. We want to make our own rules. Well, have you met successful founders lately, John? Many of them are working all the time. There's no line anymore between home
yeah.
life and work life. We have built ourselves a shinier cage. It's essentially the question in success, and you can apply this to any industry or facet of success, whether or not you're a founder, is to ask yourself, in asking for this better, have I asked to be free or have I asked to be a better slave? And unfortunately, people who are truly successful, unbeknownst to them, are actually pandering to greater servitude, to higher obligations, to bigger responsibilities, and they start to collapse under the weight of the maintaining of these. That is the gilded cage. Now, how do you know that you're in there? It's emotional. You feel stunted. You feel like you're stagnating. You start to feel aimless and restless. There's nothing objectively wrong with your life, but you actually also start to behave in patterns that are, they belie your discomfort. So, for example, in some cases, many people have come to me who are drinking a lot,
Mm,
scrolling too much, uh, unfortunately, behaving in ways that are unethical, like cheating on their spouses. These are also very typical, you should know, of the midlife crisis, but
yeah.
they're definitely hallmarks of a life that is not sustainable anymore. And the cure, if you will, the solution is not just stop. It's go inside, understand, reorient yourself around the correct targets, and get back out there.
Yeah, because those behaviors are escaping behaviors, right? So they're you feel trapped, so you're doing something, you're lashing out to escape, and whether it's the drug, alcohol, drugs, whatever. But
Yeah.
they're escaping. You're trying to escape your life. Yeah, I started my company 10 years ago, a manufacturing company, which is, it's been one of the greatest things I've ever done. But I can see where you know, I left corporate life. I have this freedom that I never had before, but there's a lot more responsibility. But I enjoy it. Like I enjoy that, and it's been a fun experience. And it's not. But I've noticed a lot of entrepreneurs try to carry the entire load, right? They don't delegate things to people. They keep everything close to
Yeah.
the vest, and so they end up becoming workaholics. And I've not experienced that at all, because I surrounded myself with a good team. I've made sure that they know what to do, and I've delegated tasks where I could take a week off, and I don't stress, and I don't worry about it. And I think people, like you said, they create a new cage for themselves sometimes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's you are the goal, you are the dream you are the promise that is contained in my book. My hope is for people to go from an egocentric, um, I'm not saying that in a bad way, truly leading through control and force and hustle and white knuckling everything person to a person who is genuinely free.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's main reason I wanted to have my own business was the freedom to be able to lead the way I want to
Yeah.
lead without someone from corporate telling me I have can only give out a 1% pay raise this year or what have you, which always frustrated me when I worked for other people. So
I
yeah.
remember being insulted by such things
Yeah.
until one day I decided to create this for myself. But what you and I probably have in common that has allowed us to do this is we are not leading from the desire to achieve anymore. We are truly desiring to serve. We're trying to do something in service of a passion of ours. When you are truly pursuing a worthy and noble goal, something that's bigger than yourself, more important than yourself, time stretches, you relax, you don't need to escape.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. What is your goal? What is your North Star? Right. I mean,
Exactly.
like this podcast is build a world with better bosses. My goal is to pass down what I've learned over the years to help the next generation of leaders be fantastic at what they do. Right. We don't make a ton of money on the podcast. It's not done. We're not doing it for that reason. We're doing it because there are great people like you that we got to get the message out to as many people as possible. Right.
Yeah,
And I
and I
think
feel the
that's,
same way about leaders. Leaders leave a very big wake,
yeah,
and that wake being toxic is absolutely destructive.
yeah.
It's not only to them, to you who are listening, it's to everybody around you. So if we can try to help you, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I've seen, and you probably see it as well, is that many leaders think that their achievements will eventually bring fulfillment, right?
Mhm.
So, if I just get to this level, if I became vice president, if I get to CEO, if I just get my salary over 300K or whatever the number might be, right? Then I'll be
Yeah,
happy, right?
sure.
But what do you think? What are the hidden costs that high performance trade away on that in that climb up the ladder and trying to get to that next level?
They are trading off the chance to check for 10 seconds whether that is in fact if whether their ladder is in fact on the correct wall. They're missing the entire point. There are two things that are wrong with this. The first thing with I if X, then I will be happy is a flawed premise. For anyone who still believes this, if I lose 10 pounds, I will be happy. If I make $1 million, I will be happy. How's that going for you? Is the only thing I have to say about that. The second thing I'll say is when you become so relentlessly in pursuit, you climb, climb, climb the ladder, and you don't take a moment to look around and ask yourself, am I actually even going in the correct direction for me? This is exactly what happened to me. What inspired my entire business and the book Gilded eventually was that I was a massive overachiever my entire 20s and my 30s, and all I did was check all the boxes and do everything quote unquote right. One goal after another, climb the ladder, climb the ladder. Number one, I never actually hit arrival or happiness. And
Yeah,
number two, when I did take a moment to look around, because I was so miserable inside, I realized that I was completely in the wrong marriage, in the wrong career, in the wrong everything for myself. Now, I don't want that to happen to anyone. That's why this book is dedicated to completely resetting all the departments of your life, to taking just a little bit of inventory. Are you in the right place? To asking yourself some questions that somewhere along the way, because you got so busy, you just didn't ask.
yeah, yeah. I think, it made me think about I was doing this podcast during COVID, and one of the things I noticed is that people started questioning their lives
Yeah.
during COVID. They went home for the first time. They were in their home and they're like, well, this is kind of nice. And what am I really doing with my life? I really hate my job. So you saw a lot of people become entrepreneurs, they change careers, and so it was almost like a little bit of a break, a reset. And a lot of people said, my ladder is on the wrong wall. Did you see that as well? Or
Yes, I did. And I have seen it since too. There's been a
yeah,
massive reorganization. It's like a big reawakening. Now, a lot of people are just still angry, so they're still lashing out. They're not quite in the place to think yet. But some of us have taken the time to really reflect and really redirect our lives. All lulls in life, like God forbid, COVID, but also like a break in your career, a crisis. They're opportunities for us to really think, to reflect on our life. And we just don't do enough of that anymore. We're too busy running into the scrolling and the numbing and the escaping. It's my
Yeah.
hope that people take over the next period and inspired by this podcast, just a few moments to read, to think, to answer some questions.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about digital detox and what have you, but I think sometimes we need we've talked about it with other guests, the idea of boredom.
Yeah.
I'm 58 years old, which meant I grew up in a time when we were bored a lot, right?
It was a
So
wonderful time. I
yeah.
remember it well.
But I think, boredom was a great thing because you got your brain to
Yeah.
you got creative and you thought of things, and you dreamed of where you wanted to go or what you wanted to achieve and what have you. And I don't think we let our brains rest enough and just have that subconscious just, be bored and have, and just
Yeah.
have thoughts. Am I in the right career? Are my goals correct? And so I think probably part of probably what you do with coaching is get people to disconnect a little bit
That's
or
exactly
have
right.
those times where they can reflect.
As a matter of fact, here's something you'll really like, John. One of the exercises in my book is called Live in the 90s. I like to take people back to a time that I remember as absolutely perfect, the 1990s. And in the 90s, do you remember what we did in the morning? We just ate breakfast.
We
You know,
read the back of the cereal box.
we read the back of the cereal box. We hung out with each other. We
Yeah.
talked to other people. In other words, it's so simple. And if you just start to instate a few of these rituals a day and read, reflect, do some journaling exercises, your life will measurably change. It was a period just like this of reflection that I took for myself when I started to really understand that I am feeling aimless, I am feeling restless, I am stagnating, something is wrong. When I took the time to sit, to read, to reflect, to work through this, to work with a coach, everything changed.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's really good advice. So, I'm going to talk about perfectionism because I think that's something I've experienced with. I'm not a perfectionist, but I've had perfectionists working with me, and that's a hard thing to deal with. So, you say it's actually one of the most damaging traits in high achievers. What does perfectionism look like in leaders, and how can it quietly hurt their ability to be successful or to find fulfillment?
Yes, there are a couple of forms in which perfectionism rears its ugly head in leaders. So sometimes it's insidious and it's hard to catch, John. The classic form of perfectionism is what Brene Brown talks about, which is people with extraordinarily high standards, almost impossible standards. They are essentially living with a fictional measuring stick of how things should be. And if the things don't be this way and the numbers don't hit this level and the results don't hit this level, everyone must die. This is classical perfectionism, and that is very punishing. It's punishing towards others as you are extraordinarily judgmental and very hard to please. It's relatively cruel, actually, and it's extraordinarily harsh on the self because that means that's how you're talking to yourself too.
Hmm.
So this is a very tricky form of perfectionism. For the leader who finds themselves slightly close to this predicament, it's never good enough. My advice is to learn to distinguish between high standards and perfectionism. And here's the difference. High standards don't hurt. I
Hmm.
love high standards. I happen to be a huge fan, not only with the Olympic athletes who are magnificent at what they do, but in my own life, I truly have high standards. It's just that if I have a typo in a newsletter, I'm not going to beat myself up or any of my assistants up. If I miss a workout, I'm not going to look at the mirror and say, "You fatty McButterpants, you're never going to get in shape." In other words, I am not so outrageous about it. And that allows me to continue to grow, to continue to motivate myself, to continue to inspire others, and just to continue to flow with life. A form of perfectionism that is a bit more insidious is, and harder to catch, by the way, is invulnerability. Is I have got everything together. I got this. I'm great. There are no
Hmm.
issues here. Everything is awesome. I call this Stepford wife perfectionism. And that is when you have a very shiny veneer, another form of a gilded cage. You look like you're together and you always feel like you need to maintain the image of a person who has the answers, who never says no to anything, who is right, who is righteous.
Hmm.
Fortunately, this is also a very painful stance because it doesn't allow people to get to know you and it makes people fearful of making a mistake around you. And then they become fearful of asking questions. This becomes a very toxic dynamic in the workplace. What we can do about that is start to enforce transparency. But the real work that's contained in the book is the work of self-compassion and vulnerability towards the self, which is a bit of a deeper dive. But people will enjoy it because it's really worth it.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we press record, and it's sort of a little bit related. It's the idea of I think I see some bosses try to be phony or try to put on, like, they get promoted into a role and they become like the caricature of a boss, and they're it's not their true personality or their true self, so they're kind of plastic and phony. And I think people see that, right? The people that work for them, like, this kind of weird the way they're acting, right? It doesn't seem natural. And I
Either
think,
that or they become scared. I think
yeah,
I give seminars about this all over the world, and I say that when people think of a leader, and the research backs this up, they usually have an image of a leader, and that image is Gordon Gekko or Miranda Priestley. And Gordon Gekko and Miranda Priestley are, of course, big heroes of fiction. Gordon Gekko played by Michael Douglas in the movie Wall Street. Miranda Priestley, Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada. They're cold, they're icy, they're very polished, and they never get anything wrong. They bark orders at people. When people move into leadership roles, many times they think that they need to step into this role.
yeah.
But this is incorrect because this alienates people and because also this is a pretense. This is not reality. When things are not real and they're not authentic, first it's punishing to yourself because you have to maintain an image that is not who you are. And number two, it doesn't allow anybody around you to be authentic with you. So
Mm.
it really dampens the quality of your relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think you were talking about earlier, like, people are almost afraid to talk to you. They, because they just don't, they don't quite understand it. Like, you're not open, to have a discussion. Because you're so buttoned up, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you're
we've all
not
met
natural.
people like that, right?
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They sense something's wrong. So, um, you also focus a lot on the emotional side of business success. So, what emotions tend to derail leaders the most? And you mentioned something about dropping anger, as you
Yeah.
put it. Why is that a game changer?
There are three emotions that derail most founders and most leaders. Hubris,
Mm,
when you take outsized risks, you really are feeling yourself. Then the second one is self-doubt, which will eat you alive. And the third is anger.
mm.
Anger, for many people, is very righteous. They love to be right, leaders especially. We just love to be right. But unfortunately, you have to ask yourself in those moments, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Because if you choose anger, you are not going to be happy. You're about to blow something up. This is what causes reactive behavior. And reactive behavior is the surest fire indication to me that someone's about to go down, that chaos is about to happen in their company or in their team, because reactive people are combustible. They can't sustain their success. They just blow it up. If you can learn to release that anger, to understand that there is no such thing as righteous anger, to use the tools that are imparted in the book to find some space between the stimulus and your response, and to bring yourself down a bit, to chill out, everything will go differently in your life. And I have to tell you, John, this one I know on my own flesh. This was the game changer for me. I was, many people out there probably can hear an accent. I'm Israeli. We are very fiery people. This is not a stereotype. This is an accurate description. And I would just blow up if anybody even so much as offered a hint of criticism. I would land on them like a sumo wrestler. When I learned that the response is the problem, not the criticism, and that I should really sit and consider this, and that there's actually nothing inherently wrong with the criticism, it's just data, and that I can then choose my response accordingly. That changed my game. That allowed me to go from one possibility, which is blow everything up, to a totality of possibilities, many possible maneuvers forward.
So it's trying to go from reactionary to being able to respond, right, and being have that space to be able to deal with that. Is that right?
That's where all your power is, going from reactive to proactive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I talked about with another guest is one of the things that, like, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so there are suppliers, there are customers, there are some of my sales reps, certain people that you know will can know how to push my buttons and get me to respond, right? And so what I will do is if I see an email and I sort of know kind of what that email is going to be, I won't even open it until I'm in the right frame of mind, and then I'll just put it aside and I'll just say, all right, now I'm ready for this,
But
whatever this is going to be.
think about
And
what you just said. You are
yeah,
showing tremendous discipline in and of
yeah,
itself. I'm the same way. I have learned to do that. I
yeah,
have
I have
learned to
too.
do that. The old Karen would just be so reflex oriented, so reaction oriented. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it now. This is
Yeah.
not the correct thing to do. The thing that bothered me most in my younger years was if somebody said you should sleep on it. And I was like,
Mm,
no, we deal with it right now. Today,
yeah.
I really agree. You should sleep on it. You need to bring the temperature down. Nothing good comes from impulsivity or anger.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that's been a big game changer for me. Just having that, like, I don't have to respond now. In fact, it's probably not a good time to respond. I'll wait until I've had a cup of coffee, I'm in a good mood, I've listened to a good song or whatever, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna deal. It's it's just an email, right?
That,
So
again, go back to the 90s.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Go back to the 90s. I love that. I love that. So one of the questions too I was going to talk about is the idea of hustle culture. You know, we get that a lot. It dominates many executive teams. I mean, I was in, global companies where, it was if you're in senior management, it was kind of frowned upon if you weren't in a hustle mode all the time, traveling all over the world, doing deals, just, high goals, high achieving. Um, what how do we break away from that hustle mindset and do things that are more fulfilling instead of just complete pressure all the time?
I think it's the sensible thing to do is to just observe what hustle culture has gotten you
Mm.
individually in your life. Is it
Yeah.
working? That's why I like to ask that question. And I ask that of myself too. How is it working for you? If it's not working for you, then you have to ask you correctly. You have to objectively look at your hustle and ask yourself if it's yielding the correct results. For the founder who is doing all things all the time, I guarantee it's not getting the results. You cannot scale from there. You can at best 2x, your profit margin's going to get squeezed, and you're going to be out of the game in no time. If instead you start to really play around with things, remove things from your plate, create more space in your calendar, begin to prioritize properly your tasks, your duties, and your relationships, strategically partner with other people who can move you farther, much faster, you will start to see different results. And then you can compare the data. Here's what happens when I hustle, and here's what happens when I work like a normal human being. And you will see that normal human being is going to get ahead way faster. I learned this myself. My first couple of years in business, like anybody else, I worked extremely hard. You got to go really hard to get from like 0 to 50, right? But then I started to think, wait a minute, if I keep killing myself like this, I will at best make 20% more next year. What do I need to do to make 200% next year or 1,000% next year? And that's when you start thinking, I must think completely different thoughts and I must make completely different moves in comparison to the way I'm acting now. Because you can't get from here to there the way you're operating now. And this is where the hustle just stops.
Yeah. I had a guest one time say, if he was talking about entrepreneurs, they said if you want to grow, you have to let go. And it always stuck in my mind is that's exactly what it needs to be. You have to find other ways. It's not scalable, right?
No, it's not scalable. Exactly. And it's such an interesting thing. This is the most counterintuitive concept in the book, the most counterintuitive concept to most founders. Surrender is your actual way to freedom. And they don't want to let go. They don't want to let go.
I, listeners, if you're a founder, if you're a business leader, that is really powerful advice. I am a business leader. I am a founder, and I know that has been the biggest game changer for me. Is I mean, I don't do everything in my company. I have great people and I let them do great things. And I
That's
think
right.
that's been one of the greatest things I've ever done as a leader. And it's been great for my mental health. It's been great for my business, and I highly recommend it. So it's good. It's very, very
Exactly
good
right. Let them
advice.
do what they want to do. Let them do what they want to
Yeah,
do.
I absolutely love that. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I think you've given us some really powerful things to think about. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
If you're out there and you are a leader or aspire to be, the best thing you can do is be easier on yourself. When you're easy on yourself, you tend to be easier on other people. And that makes everybody much more collaborative. And that also makes you become a leader who is truly worth following.
I love that. I love that. How can our listeners find out more about you and the work you do?
Thank you so much, John. KerenEldad.com, which I hope you will spell for people in the show note. And you
I
can
will.
follow me on Instagram on @CoachKaren. That's and read the book, Gilded.
Fantastic. We're going to put show notes for Kieran's resources here in the show notes. And I highly recommend, if something in this conversation really struck you, and maybe you're in that gilded cage, maybe you feel like you're trapped, and you want to reach out to Kieran. She's the one that's the expert in it. I highly recommend you reach out to her. Get the book. It's called Gilded. It's going to help you think about your life, and maybe in a different perspective. Maybe your ladder's up against the wrong wall, and that's why you're not feeling fulfilled. You're successful, but you don't feel fulfilled. If that's you, then Keren is the person you need to talk to, because she's going to get you out of that and get you in the right direction. So get the book Gilded, follow the show notes, and reach out to Keren if you got a question. Keren, thanks for coming on the show. You gave us a lot to think about, and I know from my perspective, having been in the doing business for a long time, it's really good advice. So listeners, this what she talked about today can really help you be a better boss. So follow the advice, get the book. Keren, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your expertise.
Thanks, John, for having me.
Thank you again. Well, that is it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.